Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Consciousness Rising Zimbabwe and Beyond. I am Tania Norris and today we are very definitely beyond because I am standing in the most beautiful heartland of northern Gauteng, 20 kilometers outside of Pretoria, at a place that is, I think, one of South Africa's best kept secrets, if not the world's best kept secret. It is an oasis, it's a paradise. Before I get into explaining all of that, I just want to talk about another incredible synchronicity that happened. While I was here, I came across one of the other residents who happens to be a videographer. And her name is MaryannPal, and she agreed to do all the filming and all the editing. So thank you so much, Maryann. I really appreciate it. She's standing right there behind the camera. And so for our viewers, what I would like to do is ask you to come with us while we go on this journey and explore every single aspect that this beautiful, magical, life-giving place called Hoogland Hydro has to offer. I will be talking to Dr. Andre Kruger, who is one of the founder members, and that's maybe over 40 years ago. Dr. Andre is a medical doctor, and he's also known as the fasting doctor. And all of his therapies and methodologies are all scientifically and medically proven. But we also have a whole complementary of other people like psychologists, biokineticists, nutritionists, chiropractors, homeopaths. You would come here for the full holistic package of medical and complementary health. There's a whole genre of different activities that I love to do when I come here. From water aerobics to the meditation, Pilates, yoga, hot pools, cold pools. We also have talking demonstrations, food demonstrations that are done. And I've taken back home many of those recipes with me over the years. Every night there's a health talk, so you will never, ever, ever be bored here. Welcome, and please come with us along while we do our little exploration. Dr. Andre Kruger, welcome, and thank you very much for taking time out of your really busy schedule to enlighten and educate our viewers on your very unique and specialized medical philosophies and practices. You're also known as the fasting doctor, so I would love for you to explain to us the science behind the fasting and also the Hydra cycles and how the two are used in combination.
Okay, all right. I called myself the fast doctor rather than the fasting doctor because, I'm a kind of a consultant on Figure 1, that's a medical program on the internet. And when I first put myself on there, the fast doctor, everybody thought it's a guy that runs fast or dry fast or something like that. Because unfortunately, a very large part of the allopathic medical world, the idea of fasting is very foreign, and they think we are harming people. All right. Now, personally, I practice allopathic medicine. Of course, I have a pharmacy down here, and I use medication and allopathic ways of investigation and of treating and of examination. But with knowing it is a segment of the total. Unfortunately, I think medicine has very much been hijacked by the pharmaceutical industry, and for everything that's wrong, they want to put something into you. Mm-hmm. But the philosophy here that I've actually already seen about 40 years ago when I started this practice is that in most cases when people are well, that means the body is relatively free of foreign substances. When people are unwell, there's something in them that makes them unwell. Isn't that just so logical? Mm-hmm. If there wasn't something in you that can make you unwell, if it isn't in you, how can it make you unwell? Mm-hmm. Right. So if there's something in you that makes you unwell, and you keep taking other things into you, like my allopathic medicines, mm-hmm. which sometimes saves lives, yes, mm-hmm. then you are masking what's going on there. So there's place more for getting things out. Get out that what makes you unwell. Now many people feel it starts coming out when you stop eating for a while. Go try it. If you stop eating for 3 or 4 days, you may feel unwell. Mm-hmm. And then you say, but I needed the food. Mm-hmm. 10 to 1, it's not something that needed to get in, but needed to get out. Because why? Me and so many of us who fast regularly, they can go a week or a month or that, like that one guy for more than a year without food, survive it. Mm-hmm. So if you can't go for 3 or 4 days, it's not that your body can't do it, it's that it is undermined by something in you. Mm-hmm. And that in you is all the colorants, flavorants, preservatives that we've eaten, all the medicines, which are very potent things, and medicines metabolize inside of you. But the vast bulk of these waste chemicals in your body comes from pure, plain, common metabolism. Every cell in your body is a little machine. Mm-hmm. Just like a motor car's engine. Mm-hmm. It breathes oxygen and it burns hydrocarbons. You know, carbohydrate is a subgroup of hydrocarbons, hydrogen and carbon. And when you burn these, you make a bit of waste. I mean, you put pure fuel in your car, you put pure oil in your car, you put pure air into that engine, and yet after a few thousand miles, kilometers, hours, that engine is dirty. The oil is totally dirty, bad for that car, the air filter is full, etc., etc. You didn't put that black stuff into that oil, but it get there from simply existing. Now in your body there's quite a few cells, and each of them is an engine, and they each have their little function to perform. Your brain cells have to produce electric currents. Your heart cells have to produce mechanical contraction. Your thyroid cells have to produce the hormone thyroxine. And they use energy for that. And it's a process. A little bit like an assembly line and or a disassembly line, where your digestive system is more of a disassembly and others are assembly again. But each is a factory, so it produces waste. So many people tell me, I don't need a detox because I eat so well. Right. But
that's me, that's what I would be saying.
Okay, but you do appreciate, even if you eat all that well, every cell is still functioning, it's still surviving, it's breathing.
And the cells are giving off their own waste.
Ah, of course, it's giving out a lot of waste. So you can't not need it. So from time to time you have to drain the oil, get the dust out of the filter, etc. And then the comparison I'd like to make there is your swimming pool filter. Right. The water flows through the filter. And the water that goes in and the water that comes out, the naked eye can't see the difference. And you wonder now, why does it run through there? But in time it starts running slower and slower and slower, and then you realize, but there was something in that water that packed up in this filter. So you backwash the filter and out comes a lot of dirt. Now that is what I believe is a good explanation of what happens in every cell in your body when you stop eating. In other words, you stop living from the outside world, from food and liquids into your body, and you start living from your body into the outside world. And that's where these chemicals comes out. There's one enzyme I measure routinely in people, that's called alanine transaminase. It's an enzyme specifically from the liver. I said earlier, the liver does everything. Now, when you stop eating, practically all other enzymes goes down because the stomach doesn't need to work, the kidneys gets a bit less work, etc. But the ALT goes up. When you're fasting, you reverse your metabolism. So you turn that filter around and suddenly comes out a lot of dirt. Now here are two Martians that just landed with their spacecraft next to your pool. And they see the clear water coming in and clear water going out. And now you turn the taps to backwash and suddenly out comes a lot of dirty water. So what will they say? Whoa, stop, turn them back. You're making the world dirty. And I have to explain to them, but you know, the dirt packed up here, it needs to come out. Now, how does that translate into people? People stop eating. A day later, they have a terrible headache. You know, that's one word, right? There's no word like headache. It's a terrible headache. Always, that's one word. And they say, you know, that's because I didn't eat, that I have this terrible headache. And then I come back with the argument, now since you stopped eating, what did you put into your head that can make you hurt? Right, only air and water. You can analyze this water. It's the best water in the world, I believe. Latest analysis, I found Hoogland water has a calcium content of 2.4 millimoles per liter. Now, human blood has a calcium content between 2.2 and 2.6. So this falls exactly in the middle, calcium. You take enough of that, obviously, to flush the stuff out. And we get it out of your body then with this whole cycle of hydrotherapy. In many fasting clinics, people have come off serious harm. And there are fasting clinics where people lie on their back, twiddling their toes, looking at the ceiling, and everybody serves them, and they do nothing during a fast. That's dangerous. It's dangerous. Because the fasting breaks down fat. From the fat out comes these chemicals that accumulated there, colorants, flavorants, preservatives, medicines, etc., etc. They're in the fat, not in the blood, because they're fat soluble. Anything that's fat soluble leaves the blood, goes into the fat, because the blood is water based. Try to dissolve fat in water, it won't. So as this blood runs past the fat cells, chemicals that's fat soluble leaves the blood, goes into the fat cells. When you fast, you start using your reserves. Your current account is empty, so you empty your savings account into your current account. The fat's your savings account. Gets into your blood, it releases those chemicals. That makes you feel horrible. The more horrible you feel, I say, the more you're achieving, because that's indicative of having had a lot of bad chemicals in your fat cells. But now we need to get it out of the body. And the kidney can't do that, because the kidney filters only water. The things that do get rid of that is our sweat glands primarily. What do people do in the modern world when the sweat gland starts working? It says, psst, 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 psst. Stop you. So these chemicals accumulate more and more in the body. Organs that can eliminate it is your sinuses, because they have mucous membranes that can eliminate it. And now people say, but you see, you give me sinusitis. Okay. The nose can do that. The nose can eliminate some fat-soluble chemicals, so can your mouth to some extent. But what do we do nowadays when there's some phlegm coming into the mouth? Do we spit it out like our ancestors did? We swallow it. It doesn't get back. It doesn't get out. Natural people and animals, when there's something bad tasting in the mouth, it gets out. We put it back in. So now the stomach to some extent can deal with it, The pancreas can deal with it, but the main organ in the body that deals with fat-soluble chemicals is the liver. Liver turns it into bile and it drops the bile into your gut. Unfortunately, drop it up here at the duodenum and it has a long way to get out of your body. That is why we need fiber in the diet to hold it in the gut to get out. But it still has a long way, and if you stop eating, if you fast, that route of elimination is to some extent not available. That's when we get to the biggest organ in your body, the skin. The skin is by far the biggest organ, and it is directly connected to the outside world, so you can get things out. But then we have to activate the sweat glands. There's two types of sweat glands, apocrine and eccrine, managing water solubles and fat solubles. We need to get rid of the fat solubles, and that is what's often in the axillae and the pubic area where we stop it from sweating. So what we do here to get those chemicals effectively out of your system is to ask the skin to please help. How we do that? While fasting, these chemicals get into your blood, whether it's foreign chemicals that got into you or metabolites from the trillions of little engines in your body, it gets into the blood. Now we need to clean that blood. 5 steps is number 1, you do exercise. Exercise speeds up the blood flow so that there is redundant blood flow available. While the redundant blood flow is available, we send it to the skin with massage. We use a variety of massage here. Of course, you can get the professional Swedish massage or various forms of bodily massage by another person, or we have available 24/7 these underwater jets that do very powerful jet massage on your skin, or sitz baths, or a variety of ways. At home, one can just rub your body with a loofah, or get a rough towel, or a husband or a wife. That's one of the things they're good for. And then once that blood is in the skin, before it returns back into the body carrying those toxins, we have to activate the sweat glands. So while that blood's flowing in your skin, we get into a sauna or a very hot bath or a steam room to activate these sweat glands. Now the sweat gland is a very intelligent little organ. It can discriminate between nutrients and waste. And that is one of the functions of sweating. The main function is cooling down, but to get rid of certain fat-soluble chemicals, you also need to activate those sweat glands. And they're very, very good at that. So the chemicals end up on the surface of your skin, and then we ask you, just before you return to the rest phase, just wash that off. So you go into a water again. But because some people can get varicose veins, we want to cool down the skin. A vein, any blood vessel that heats up, dilates. When it cools down, it contracts. So we want to contract most of them before you settle down. And that is why we suggest a cold phase. That's number 4. Exercise, massage, sweat, cool down. And then you rest to allow the whole system to stabilize again before you start the next cycle. So in people who are fasting, this cycle, which is what we focus on in the therapy section down below, that prevents the side effects to a very large extent. People who get desperately ill when they don't eat, when they do this, they don't. So
what you're saying is that it helps with people getting ill. You're less likely to feel ill if you do the cycles.
Yeah, that is not in general ill also, but particularly while you're fasting, while you're breaking down the fat to get those chemicals out of your system. But what I've observed over the past 40 plus years, people come to me and say, I'm desperately hungry now, and I tell them, please, just before you go to eat, just do one of these cycles. and it's open and available all day long. And they come back after the cold phase and the rest phase, say, my appetite's gone. And that's because that's what triggered the appetite. The foreign chemicals that looked for a place to hide didn't find that place to hide, and they left your body through these cycles. And that's quite an interesting experience that people have. And say, I feel so, I have this headache, I have this fatigue, I have this hunger, go through a cycle, and it is relieved. Not always totally, of course. I mean, people are too complex for that.
My husband met somebody here that was, and they were sitting in the steam room together, and he said, he was an older guy, he said that in the 60s he used to take a lot of LSD, and while he was here at the hydro doing his whole cycling thing, he started having hallucinations and going on trips because that LSD had been trapped in his cells all those years, and now it was
released and reaching the brain again. I've seen that twice. And one girl was off LSD for 15 years when this happened, and one guy was off for 25 years when it happened. But I could see the hallucinations in his eyes. It's just an amazing experience. I once had quite a bit of a mind from a nurse who came here. She was fasting on water. She said, why do you put penicillin in the water? There's no penicillin in the water. Don't lie to me. I'm a nurse. I know what penicillin smells like when people pass urine. My urine smells like penicillin. So when last did you have penicillin? 8 years ago. It was there, coming to the surface. You can smell all kinds of things. You can get all kinds of symptoms, like you mentioned this LSD. It's interesting that you've also encountered that. But we see that very often in people who've taken a lot of chemicals over a long period of time. If a part of that chemical is fat soluble, that will stay behind. The water soluble part will be flushed out. And that's why during a fast, flushing your system with water is not all that important. We need to get the fat soluble stuff out. I hope and I think the bulk of people we get here are health promotion. In other words, don't wait until you're sick to do something. Right? You shouldn't wait until your car's engine seizes before you service it. So ideally, we prevent the disease from fully developing. You must bear in mind, we have been created, designed with a lot of reserve capacity. There's enough lung for about 4 or 5 people in your body, particularly when you're young. There's enough heart to beat for 3 or 4. There's enough liver for 5 or 6. There's enough kidney, you can donate one of them. There's a lot of reserve. So by the time your symptoms surfaces, most of the damage is done. We try to catch it before that's done. That's the ideal, and that's a very large component of what we do here. Less than a quarter of my patients do actually do fasting. So it's not like it's a compulsory thing to do.
It's not a compulsory thing, but some of them do fasting for as long as they possibly can. Obviously, you monitor that all the way down the line.
Yeah, the longest I've actually supervised here was 45 days. And I know elsewhere in the world people have gone longer. But there are people who die after 10 or 15 days because they don't eliminate what's released during the fast. Okay, so fasting is part of it. But that's also part of diseases where my colleagues and myself don't have all the answers. You know, there's certain diseases that just look after themselves. There's certain diseases that don't look after themselves, but we can't help either. And when you're kind of in that position, then I say, let us try. I will not deal with the disease without the allopathic, scientific, medical component unless that has totally failed and proved useless. Then we will look for alternatives. I'm scared of the word alternative. We like to practice complementary. Take from all approaches what's appropriate. I do more the allopathic. Dr. Blake does more the homeopathic and the chiropractic or the biokinetics. And my dear wife does more the psychology. So it's not an either-or thing. But if I need surgery, I go to a surgeon, I say, cut here and there, and then come back to me. Don't take over the rest. You're a specialist. A specialist work within a speciality. A generalist work in a generality, but even that in orthodox allopathic medicine, even we GPs don't see the whole thing. There's place for more. I'm very proud when people walk out with much less medicine than I walked in. But some people are still going to get medicine and some are going to walk out with more, unfortunately. Sorry to say that, but it's unfortunately true. Medicine do save lives.
I also think that it's important to mention that different people come to Hoogland for many different reasons. Some of them are wanting to heal from a life-threatening illness, and other people come because they just want to lose some weight, and other people come just to be nurtured, and that's really one of the reasons that I come. That's really, if I could tell you my story, it's really a way of bringing myself back to myself. Because you know, I mean, I live in a country in nature, so I have all of that, but life is busy. You know, so you do your exercise, you do your Zumba, you do your swimming, you do all of those things, but you're also so caught up in life. And when you come to a place like this, you don't have to plan to go for a walk or a hike because it's all here just on your doorstep. You just walk outside and you get a beautiful guided tour and you get explained all the different, the plants and the whole ecology of the area. So yeah, I think it's definitely a place to come and rejuvenate, come and replenish and re-educate. And one thing that I really want to talk about here is the food. So obviously if you're wanting to lose weight, you wouldn't bother about that. You'd stay far away from the kitchen, from the dining room. But the food that they have here is just so, it's organic, it's homegrown, it's nourishing. And so if you are a vegan, a vegetarian, a meat eater, it's all here and it's all in abundance. Yesterday I had the most fabulous treatment with Monica, and Monica is an integrative psychotherapist and she's a clinical psychologist. But it was on it's called a MONOCHORD, which is a beautiful bed that you lay on, and she plays, it's a musical instrument, and all of those vibrations just, you can feel them just going and oozing through your body. And I love that because that's part of my healing philosophy in life, is about sound vibration and frequency and light frequencies. Another thing that needs to be mentioned is that it's really just a hop, skip and away. You will arrive in Johannesburg, you catch the Gauteng to Pretoria, to Centurion, and then from there you'll be picked up by a shuttle. Somebody here from the hydro will come and collect you. And it's also extremely affordable. People won't believe that. So I encourage people, please, just to go to the website and have a look and see how the different packages that they have on offer. They also have a lot of massages, beauty treatments. So it really is your one-stop shop holistic package. And yeah, so I really hope that next time I'm here, I get to see some of you and some new faces.